Welcome to Sleep Story. Let the soothing cadence of a story weave through your consciousness, lulling your body to rest and your mind to tranquility as you drift into dreams on the wings of imagination.
Meanwhile, Zhou Yu was filled with rage and fell from his horse. His attendants rushed to his aid and carried him back to the ship. Soldiers reported, Zhuandi and Mourning are drinking and reveling on the summit of the mountain ahead. Zhou Yu flew into a rage, gritting his teeth and declaring, "You think I cannot take Sichuan? I swear I will take it." Just as he was seething with anger, a messenger arrived with news that Sun Quan had sent his younger brother Sun Yu. Zhou Yu received him and recounted the matter in detail. Sun Yu said, "I have come to assist the commander-in-chief at my brother's command." He then ordered the troops to advance. Upon reaching Bachu, it was reported that Liu Feng and Guanping were leading troops to block the waterway upstream. Zhou Yu grew even angrier. Suddenly, it was reported that Mourning had sent a letter. Zhou Yu opened it and read it. The letter read, "Han Military Advisor and Colonel Zhu Liang, to the Grand Commander Gongjin of Dongwu. Since our parting at Chaisang, I have never forgotten you. I hear that you intend to take Sichuan, but I privately believe it is unwise. Yizhou has a strong population and a strategic location. Although Liu Zhong is weak and incompetent, he is sufficient to defend himself. Now, to launch a distant campaign, transporting supplies over thousands of miles, and seek complete victory, even Wu Che could not establish such a plan, and Sun Wu could not ensure its success. Cao Cao suffered defeat at the Battle of Red Cliffs. How could he forget his desire for revenge? Now that you have launched a distant campaign, if Cao Cao takes advantage of the situation and attacks, the south will be reduced to ashes. I cannot bear to watch idly, so I am informing you of this. Please give it your consideration." Zhou Yu finished reading, sighed deeply, and called his attendants to fetch paper and ink to write a letter to the Wu. He gathered his generals and said, "I am not unwilling to serve the country with loyalty, but heaven's will has already been sealed. You must serve the Wu well and achieve great deeds together." Having spoken, he fainted. He slowly regained consciousness, looked up to the heavens, and sighed. Since she was born, why was Liang also born? He called out several times and then died. He was 36 years old, a later poet lamented. At the Battle of Red Cliffs, he displayed heroic valor. In his youth, he had a fine reputation. Through music and song, he expressed his noble intentions. With wine and cups, he bid farewell to his good friends. He once visited the 3,000 Hu, and often led 10,000 troops. At Bakiyu, where his life ended, mourners gathered to mourn his passing. Zhou Yu's funeral was held at Bakiyu. The general sent the letters he had left behind to Sun Quan. Upon hearing of Zhou Yu's death, Sun Quan burst into tears. Upon opening the letter, he found that Zhou Yu had recommended Lu Su as his successor. The letter read, "With my limited abilities, I have been honored with extraordinary favor, entrusted with the command of troops, and dared not spare any effort to repay this trust. Alas, life and death are unpredictable, and longevity is predestined. My aspirations remain unfulfilled, and my body has perished, leaving endless regret. At present, Cao Cao is in the north, and the frontiers are not yet peaceful. Liu Bei is a guest, like a tiger being raised. The affairs of the world are still uncertain. This is a time when court officials should be concerned, and a day when the sovereign should be vigilant. Lu Su is loyal and upright, and does not act recklessly in matters of importance. He can take Yu's place when a person is about to die. His words are sincere. If you will consider this, you will not die in vain. Sun Quan read the letter and wept, saying, Gongjin had the talent to assist a king, yet he has died so suddenly. How can I rely on him now, since he specifically recommended Zijing in his final letter? How dare I disobey him? He immediately appointed Lu Su as commander-in-chief, overseeing all military affairs. At the same time, he ordered Zhou Yu's coffin to be returned for burial. Meanwhile, Kongming was in Jingju, observing the heavens at night, when he saw a star fall from the sky. He smiled and said, Zhou Yu is dead. At dawn, he informed Zhuandi. Zhuandi sent someone to investigate, and indeed, Zhou Yu is dead. Zhuandi asked Kongming, now that Zhou Yu is dead, what should we do? Kongming replied, the one who will take Zhou Yu's place in command is surely Lu Su. I observed the celestial phenomena, and the stars of the military are gathering in the east. I shall use the pretext of mourning to travel to Zhongdong and seek out talented individuals to assist the Lord. Zhuandi said, I fear the soldiers of Wu may harm you. Kongming replied, while Zhou Yu was alive, I had no fear. Now that he is dead, what is there to fear? He then set sail with Zhao Yun and 500 soldiers, carrying funeral offerings, to Baqiu to pay his respects. Along the way, they learned that Sun Quan had appointed Lu Su as commander-in-chief, and Zhou Yu's coffin had already been returned to Chaisang. Kongming went straight to Chaisang, where Lu Su welcomed him with courtesy. Zhou Yu's generals all wanted to kill Kongming, but seeing that Zhao Yun was accompanying him with a sword, they dared not act. Kongming had offerings placed before the spirit tablet, personally poured wine, knelt on the ground, and read the memorial text. Alas, Gongjin, you died so young. Life is short, but that is the will of heaven. How can people not grieve? My heart is truly pained. I offer this cup of wine. If you have a spirit, please accept my offerings. I mourn your youth, when you befriended Burfu. You were generous and selfless, giving up your home for others. I mourn your young adulthood, when you soared like a phoenix across 10,000 miles. You established and ruled over Jiangnan. I mourn your strength, when you governed Baqiu from afar. Jing Sheng had no worries as you suppressed rebellion. I mourn your noble demeanor, matched with Zi Qiao. As the son-in-law of a Han minister, you were worthy of your time. I mourn your courage, opposing the surrender of hostages. Though you did not spread your wings at first, you eventually soared. I mourn your time in Poying, when Zhonggang came to persuade you. You handled it with ease, showing great magnanimity and lofty aspirations. I mourn your great talent, your military and political strategies. You used fire to defeat the enemy, turning weakness into strength. I recall your heroic demeanor in your prime. I weep for your untimely death, bowing to the ground in tears. Your loyal and righteous heart, your heroic spirit. Though your life ended after 3 decades, your name will endure for 100 generations. My grief for you is profound, my sorrows intertwined. Only my liver and gallbladder remain, my sorrow unending. The heavens grow dark, the 3 armies mourn. The Lord weeps in sorrow, friends shed tears. I, Liang, am unworthy, seeking strategies and plans, assisting Wu in resisting Cao, aiding Han in stabilizing Liu, providing mutual support, coordinating front and rear, whether existing or perishing. What is there to fear or worrying about? Alas, Gongjin, farewell in life and death. Remain true to your integrity, fading into obscurity. If your spirit is still alive, witness my heart. From now on, the world will have no more kindred spirits. Alas, how painful. May you rest in peace. After the ceremony, Kongming knelt on the ground and wept bitterly, his tears flowing like a spring, his grief unbearable. The generals said to one another, "Everyone says that Gongjin and Kongming were not on good terms, but now, seeing the sincerity of his mourning, we know that those were all false rumors." Lu Su, seeing Kongming's deep sorrow, was also moved. He thought to himself, Kongming is indeed a man of deep feelings, but Gongjin was narrow-minded and brought his own downfall. A later poet composed a poem in lamentation. The dragon of Nanyang sleeps on, unawakened, as another star descends upon Chaisang. Heaven has already given us Gongjin. Why must the world also produce Kongming? Lu Su hosted a banquet for Kongming. After the banquet, Kongming took his leave. As he was about to board the boat, he saw a man by the river bank, wearing a Taoist robe and a bamboo hat, with a black sash and white shoes. The man grabbed Kongming's arm and laughed, saying, "You drove Zhou Lang to his death, yet you come here to mourn him. Do you think there is no one in Dongwu who can match you?" Kongming looked closely at the man and recognized him as Fengku Xiansheng Pangtong. Kongming also burst into laughter. The two took each other's hands and boarded the boat, each sharing their innermost thoughts. Kongming left a letter for Tong, instructing him, "I foresee that Sun Zhongmu will not be able to fully utilize your talents. If things do not go as planned, come to Jingju to assist Zhuandi. This man is kind-hearted and virtuous. He will not betray the knowledge you have spent your life acquiring." Tong agreed and departed. While Kongming returned to Jingju, it so happened that Lu Su escorted Zhou Yu's coffin to Wuhu, where Sun Quan received it, mourned before it, and ordered a lavish burial in his hometown. Zhou Yu had two sons and one daughter. The eldest son, Zun, the second son, Yin, and Sun Quan provided generous support for all of them. Lu Su said, "I am a mediocre talent who has been undeservedly recommended by Gongjin. In truth, I am unworthy of my position. I wish to recommend a person to assist your excellency. This man understands astronomy above and geography below. His strategies are no less than those of Guan and Yue, and his strategic acumen can rival that of Sun and Wu. In the past, Zhou Gongjin often followed his advice, and Kongming also deeply admired his wisdom. He is now in Jiangnan. Why not make use of him?" Sun Quan was overjoyed upon hearing this and asked for the man's name. Lu Su replied, "This man is from Xiangyang, surnamed Pang, named Tong, with the courtesy name Shiyuan. His Taoist name is Fengku Xiansheng." Sun Quan said, "I have heard of his name for a long time. Now that he is here, please invite him to meet me." Thus, Lu Su invited Pang Tong to meet Sun Quan. After the formalities were completed, Sun Quan saw that the man had thick eyebrows, a prominent nose, a dark face, and a short beard, with an unusual appearance, and he was not pleased. He asked, "What is the main focus of your studies?" Tong replied, "There is no need to be rigid. One must adapt to circumstances." Sun Quan asked, "How does your talents and learning compare to that of Zhou Yu?" Tong smiled and said, "My studies are vastly different from those of Zhou Yu." Sun Quan had always admired Zhou Yu, and seeing Tong dismiss him, he grew even more displeased. He said to Tong, "You may withdraw for now. When there is a need for your services, we will summon you." Tong sighed deeply and left. Lu Su said, "Why doesn't your majesty use Pang Shiyuan?" Sun Quan said, "He's a madman. What use is there in employing him?" Lu Su said, "During the Battle of Red Cliffs, this man proposed the change ship strategy, which was the first great achievement. Your majesty must surely be aware of this," Sun Quan said. At that time, Cao Cao chose to chain his ships himself. It was not necessarily this man's achievement. I swear I will not use him. Lu Su went out and said to Pang Tong, "It is not that I did not recommend you, but the Lord of Wu refuses to use you. Please be patient." Tong lowered his head and sighed deeply without speaking. Su asked, "Are you perhaps disinterested in Wu?" Tong did not answer. Su said, "You possess the talent to save the world. Where would you not succeed? Please speak honestly with me. Where do you intend to go?" Tong replied, "I wish to join Cao Cao," Su said. "This is like throwing a pearl into the dark. You should go to Jingju to join Yu Wangshu. He will certainly use you well," Tong said. "That is indeed my intention. My earlier words were just a joke," Su said. "I will write a letter of recommendation for you. If you assist Zhuanda, you will certainly prevent the Sun and Liu families from attacking each other and unite their forces to defeat Cao," Tong said. "That has always been my lifelong ambition." He then requested Su's letter and went directly to Jingju to meet Zhuandi. At that time, Kongming had not yet returned from inspecting the 4 counties. The gatekeeper reported, "The renowned scholar Pang Tong from Jiangnan has come to seek your patronage." Zhuandi had long heard of Tong's reputation and ordered him to be brought in for an audience. When Tong saw Zhuandi, he bowed deeply but did not kneel. Zhuandi, seeing Tong's unremarkable appearance, was also displeased. He asked Tong, "Has your journey been arduous?" Tong did not present the letters from Lu Su and Kongming, but replied, "I heard that your royal uncle is recruiting talented individuals, so I have come to seek your patronage." Zhuandi said, "Jingju is now somewhat stabilized, but there are no vacant positions. There is a county called Liang County, 130 li to the northeast, which is in need of a county magistrate. I would like to offer you the position. If there are any vacancies in the future, I will certainly give you a more important role." Tong thought, "How little respect Zhuandi shows me." He wanted to use his talents and knowledge to persuade him, but since Kongming was not present, he could only reluctantly take his leave. Upon arriving in Liang County, Tong neglected his duties, spending his days drinking and enjoying himself, and paid no attention to matters of finance, litigation, or administration. Someone reported to Zhuandi that Pang Tong had completely neglected the affairs of Liang County. Zhuandi grew angry and exclaimed, "How dare this ignorant scholar disrupt my laws and regulations?" He then summoned Zhong Fei and instructed him to lead his men to inspect the counties of Jingnan. If there are any instances of injustice or lawlessness, investigate them immediately. If there are any unclear matters, you may go with Sun Qian. Zhong Fei accepted the order and went to Liang County with Sun Qian. The military, civilians, and officials all came out of the city gates to greet them, but the county magistrate was nowhere to be seen. Zhong Fei asked, "Where is the county magistrate?" His colleagues replied, "Since Pang Tong took office over 100 days ago, he has not attended to any county affairs. He drinks wine every day from dawn till dusk, always in a drunken stupor. Today, he is still drunk from yesterday, and has not yet risen from bed." Zhong Fei flew into a rage and wanted to arrest him. Sun Qian said, "Pang Shiyuan is a highly intelligent man. We must not take him lightly. Let us go to the county office and ask him. If what he says is unreasonable, we can punish him later. Zhou Fei entered the county office, sat down in the main hall, and summoned the county magistrate to appear before him. Pang Shiyuan, dressed in disheveled clothes, staggered out while drunk. Zhou Fei angrily said, "My brother appointed you as county magistrate because he trusted you. How dare you neglect your duties?" Tong laughed and said, "General, what county affairs have I neglected?" Zhou Fei said, "You have been in office for over 100 days, yet you spend your days drunk. How can you not neglect your duties?" Tong said, "A small county of 100 li, with minor official matters, what is so difficult to decide? General, please sit down. I will handle it." He then summoned the clerks and had them bring all the accumulated official business from the past 100 days for him to adjudicate. The clerks hurriedly carried the case files into the hall, while the plaintiffs and defendants knelt in a circle at the foot of the steps. Tong reviewed the documents in his hand, issued his rulings verbally, listened to the arguments, and distinguished between right and wrong with perfect clarity, making no errors whatsoever. The people all knelt and bowed in gratitude. In less than half a day, he had resolved all the matters accumulated over 100 days. He threw down his brush and said to Zhou Fei, "What matters have been neglected?" Cao Cao and Sun Quan, I regard them as easily understood as reading a book. How could this small county be worth worrying about? Zhou Fei was greatly surprised and stepped down from his seat to apologize, saying, "Sir, you were truly talented. I have been disrespectful. I will strongly recommend you to my elder brother." Tong then produced the recommendation letter from Lu Su. Zhou Fei asked, "Why didn't you present it when you first met my elder brother?" Pang Tong replied, "If I had presented it immediately, it would have seemed as though I was relying solely on the recommendation letter to seek an audience." Zhou Fei turned to Sun Qian and said, "Without you, we would have lost a great talent." He then took leave of Pang Tong and returned to Jingju to see Zhuandi, recounting Pang Tong's talents in detail. Zhuandi was greatly surprised and said, "To have treated such a great talent with disrespect is my fault." Fei presented Lu Su's recommendation letter. Zhuandi opened it and read it. The letter read, "Pang Shiyuan is not a man of limited ability. If he were placed in the roles of governor or deputy governor, he could truly showcase his talents. If he is judged solely by his appearance, he may fail to utilize his knowledge and ultimately be used by others, which would be a great pity." After Zhuandi finished reading, he was sighing in regret when suddenly it was reported that Coming had returned. Zhuandi welcomed him in, and after the formalities were completed, Coming asked first, "How has military advisor Pang been lately?" Zhuandi replied, "He has been governing Liang County, but his love for wine has caused him to neglect his duties." Coming smiled and said, "Shiyuan is not a man of ordinary talent. His knowledge surpasses mine by tenfold. I once had a recommendation letter with him. Has it reached the Lord yet?" Zhuandi said, "I have just received Zijing's letter, but I have not seen your letter." Coming said, "A great sage in a minor position often becomes intoxicated by wine and grows weary of official duties." Zhuandi said, "If it were not for my younger brother's words, I would have nearly lost this great sage." He immediately sent Zhou Fei to Liang County to invite Pang Tong to Jingju. Zhuandi descended the steps to apologize. Pang Tong then presented the letter of recommendation from Coming. Zhuandi read the letter, which stated that upon Fengku's arrival, he should be immediately given an important position. Zhuandi rejoiced and said, as Sima Dicao once said, if one can obtain either the dragon or the phoenix, the world can be pacified. Now that I have both, the Han dynasty can be revived. He then appointed Pang Tong as deputy military advisor and colonel, to work alongside Kongming in devising strategies, training troops, and preparing for campaigns. Word soon reached Zhu Kong that Liu Bei had Zhu Liang and Pang Tong as his strategists, was recruiting troops, purchasing horses, stockpiling grain, and forming alliances with the Eastern Wu. Cao Cao heard this and gathered his strategists to discuss a southern campaign. Zhou Yu suggested, now that Zhou Yu has died, we should first target Sun Quan, then attack Liu Bei. Cao Cao replied, if I launch a distant campaign, I fear Mourning may attack Zhu Kong. During the Battle of Red Cliffs, there were rumors within the army, and reports of an invasion from Liang were also circulating. We must not overlook this now. Zhou Yu said, in my humble opinion, it would be better to issue an edict appointing Mourning general of the south, sending him to attack Sun Quan, luring him to the capital, and eliminating him first. Then there will be no concerns about the southern campaign. Cao Cao was delighted, and immediately sent an envoy with the edict to Liang to summon Mourning. Now, Mourning, whose courtesy name was Shaojing, was a descendant of Han Dynasty General Mo Yuan. His father, Ma Su, whose courtesy name was Zishuo, served as the magistrate of Langan County in Chanshui during the reign of Emperor Huang. Later, he lost his position and drifted to Longxi, where he lived among the Kong people and married a Kong woman, giving birth to Mourning. Mourning stood 8 feet tall. He was physically imposing yet gentle in nature, and many people respected him. During the final years of Emperor Ling's reign, the Kong people rebelled frequently, and Teng recruited militia to suppress them. In the middle years of the Chuping era, he was appointed General of the West for his achievements in suppressing rebels, and he became close friends with General of the West Han Shui. Upon receiving the imperial edict, he discussed the matter with his eldest son, Ma Chao, saying, since I received the imperial edict from Dongcheng, I have made an alliance with Liu Zhuanda to suppress the rebels. Unfortunately, Dongcheng has died, and Liu Zhuanda has suffered repeated defeats. I am stationed in the remote region of Liang, and have been unable to assist Liu Zhuanda. Now that I hear Liu Zhuanda has secured Jingzhou, I am eager to fulfill my former aspirations. Yet Cao Cao has summoned me. What should I do? Ma Chao said. Cao Cao is summoning you on behalf of the emperor. If you refuse to go, he will surely accuse you of disobeying orders. You should take advantage of his summons to go to the capital and act from there. Then your former aspirations can be realized. Mourting's nephew Ma Dai advised, Cao Cao has ulterior motives. If you go, you may fall into his trap, Chao said. I am willing to mobilize all the troops of Liang to follow my father into Zhukong and eliminate this menace to the world. What is there to hesitate about? Teg said, you shall command the Kong troops to defend Liang. Only my second son, Mo Zhu, my third son, Mo Tai, and my nephew, Mo Dai, shall accompany me. Cao Cao, seeing that you remain in Liang, and that Han Shui will assist us, dare not harm me. Chao said, Father, if you wish to go, do not enter the capital lightly. You must adapt to the situation and observe their movements. Teg said, I have my own plans. There is no need to worrying. Thus, Motek led 5,000 troops from Liang, with Mo Zhu and Ma Tai as the vanguard and Ma Dai in the rear to provide support, and marched towards Zhukong. They camped 20 li away from Zhukong. Upon hearing that Mourning had arrived, Cao Cao summoned Wang Kui, the imperial secretary, and instructed him, "At present, Ma Teng is campaigning in the south. I appoint you as military advisor. Proceed to Ma Teng's camp to comfort the troops. Tell Ma Teng the Xiliang region is distant and logistics are difficult. You cannot bring too many troops. I will dispatch additional forces to advance in coordination. Tomorrow, have him enter the city to audience with the emperor, and I will provide the necessary provisions." Wang Kui accepted the order and went to meet Ma Teng. Ma Teng hosted a banquet in his honor. As Wang Kui became intoxicated, he said, "My father, Wang Wan, died in the turmoil caused by Li Ju and Guo Si, and I have always harbored deep resentment. I never imagined that today I would encounter traitors who betray the emperor." Ma Teng asked, "Who are these traitors who betray the emperor?" Wang Kui replied, "The traitor who betrays the emperor is Cao Cao." "How can you not know this and ask me, Teng?" Fearing that Kui was sent by Cao Cao to probe him, hurriedly stopped him and said, "Our ears and eyes are close by. Do not speak recklessly," Kui scolded. "Have you forgotten the imperial edict?" Teng, seeing that Kui had spoken his mind, secretly revealed the truth to him. Kui said, "Cao Cao wants you to enter the city to see the emperor. It cannot be for good intentions. You must not enter lightly. Tomorrow, you should gather your troops outside the city. When Cao Cao comes out to inspect the troops, kill him there, and the great matter will be accomplished." The two made their plans. Wang Kui returned home, still furious. His wife asked him repeatedly, but he refused to speak. Unbeknownst to him, his concubine Li Chengshong was having an affair with his wife's younger brother, Miao Zi. Zi wanted to have Chengshong, but had no way to do so. Seeing Wang Kui's anger, the concubine said to Zi, "Wang Kui returned from discussing military matters today, looking very angry. I wonder who he is angry with." Zi said, "You can provoke him by saying, 'Everyone says that Liu Bei is benevolent and Cao Cao is a cunning villain. Why is that? See what he says.'" That night, Wang Kui indeed went to Chengshong's room. The concubine teased him with her words. Kui, drunk, said, "You are a woman and still know right from wrong. How much more so for me? What I resent is that I want to kill Cao Cao." The concubine said, "If you want to kill him, how will you do it?" Kui said, "I have already made an agreement with General Ma to kill him tomorrow when mustering the troops outside the city." I informed Miao Zi, who reported it to Cao Cao. Cao Cao then secretly summoned Cao Hong and Su Chu and gave them instructions. He also summoned Sha Hu Yuan and Su Wang and gave them instructions. Everyone received their orders and departed. Meanwhile, Wang Kui's entire family was arrested. The next day, Ma Teng led the Xiliang troops toward the city. Suddenly, they saw a cluster of red flags bearing the Chancellor's banner. Ma Teng assumed that Cao Cao had come to inspect the troops and rode forward. Suddenly, a cannon blast sounded, the red flags parted, and arrows rained down. Leading the charge was Cao Hong. Ma Teng hurriedly turned his horse to retreat, but cries arose from both sides. Su Chu attacked from the left, Sha Hu Yuan from the right, and Su Wang led his troops from behind, cutting off the Xiliang army and trapping Ma Teng and his two sons in the center of the battlefield. Ma Teng saw the situation was hopeless and charged fiercely. Ma Tai was already killed by arrows. Ma Zhu followed Ma Teng, charging left and right, but could not break out. Both were severely wounded, and their horses were also struck down by arrows. father and son were both captured. Cao Cao ordered Huang Kui and Ma Teng's father and son to be bound together and brought forward. Huang Kui cried out, "I am innocent." Cao Cao ordered Miao Zi to testify against him. Ma Teng cursed, "You fool have ruined my great cause. I cannot kill the enemy. For the sake of the country it is the will of heaven." Cao Cao ordered him to be led away. Ma Teng cursed incessantly, and he, his son Mo Zhu, and Huang Kui were all killed together. A later poet lamented Ma Teng. Father and son alike were noble and loyal, their loyalty and integrity renowned throughout their clan. They sacrificed their lives for the nation's crisis, vowing to die in service to the emperor's grace. Their blood-sworn oath remains, their righteous deeds in punishing the traitor endure. As the heir of the Western Liang lineage, he was no disgrace to the descendant of Fu Bo. Miaozi told Cao Cao, "I do not seek rewards, but only ask for Li Chengxiong as my wife." Cao Cao laughed and said, "You have harmed your brother-in-law's family for the sake of a woman. What use is there in sparing such an unrighteous person?" He then ordered that Miaozi, Li Chengxiong, and Huang Kui's entire family be executed in the market square. All who witnessed it could not help but sigh. A later poet composed a poem in lamentation. Miaozi harmed a loyal minister for personal gain. Li Chengxiong, though unattained, suffered harm. Even a cunning tyrant cannot tolerate such treachery. It is futile to scheme as a villain. Cao Cao ordered the surrender of the Xi Liang troops, declaring, "The rebellion of Ma Teng and his sons does not concern the rest of you." He then dispatched men to secure the passes, ensuring that Ma Dai did not escape. As for Ma Dai, he led 1,000 troops in the rear. Soon, soldiers who had escaped from outside Zukong reported this to Ma Dai. Ma Dai was greatly alarmed and had no choice but to abandon his troops, disguise himself as a merchant, and flee in the dead of night. After Cao Cao executed Ma Teng and his sons, he resolved to launch a southern campaign. Suddenly, someone reported, "Liu Bei is training his troops, gathering his weapons, and preparing to seize Sichuan." Cao Cao exclaimed in alarm, "If Liu Bei conquers Sichuan, his wings will be fully formed. How shall we counter him?" Before he could finish speaking, a man stepped forward from the lower steps and said, "I have a plan that will prevent Liu Bei and Sun Quan from aiding each other, and both Jiangnan and Sichuan will fall under the Chancellor's control." Indeed, the heroes of the West have just been slain, and the heroes of the South now face disaster. Who was the one who offered this plan? We shall see in the next chapter. Now, the person who offered this advice was Chen Kun, the imperial censor, whose courtesy name was Changwen. Cao asked, "What is Chen Changwen's plan?" Chen replied, "Now that Liu Bei and Sun Quan have formed an alliance, if Liu Bei wants to take Sichuan, the Chancellor can order a general to lead the troops, join forces with the troops at Fei, and directly take Jiangnan. Then Sun Quan will definitely ask Liu Bei for help. Since Liu Bei's focus is on Western Shu, he will have no intention of rescuing Sun Quan. Without rescue, Sun Quan's forces will grow weak and depleted, and the lands of Jiangdong will inevitably fall into the Chancellor's hands. Once Jiangdong is secured, Jingju can be subdued in one decisive campaign. With Jingju pacified, we can then gradually plan for Western Shu. The entire realm will be unified," Cao Cao said. Changwen's words align perfectly with my own intentions. He immediately mobilized an army of 300,000 troops and marched directly to Jiangnan. He ordered Zhong Liao at Hefei to prepare provisions and supplies. Soon, Spies reported this to Sun Quan. Quan gathered his generals to discuss the matter. Zhang Zhao said, "We should send someone to Lu Zijing's residence to urgently dispatch a letter to Jingju, urging Zhuandi to join forces with us to resist Cao. Zijing has done Zhuandi a favor, so his words will surely be heeded. And since Zhuandi is the son-in-law of the Eastern Wu, he cannot refuse. If Zhuandi comes to assist us, the south will be safe." Sun Quan followed his advice and immediately sent someone to inform Lu Su to seek help from Zhuandi. Lu Su accepted the mission and immediately wrote a letter and sent it to Zhuandi. After reading the letter, Zhuandi kept the messenger at the guest house and sent someone to Nanyang to invite Kongming. When Kongming arrived in Jingju, Zhuandi showed him Lu Su's letter. Kongming said, "There is no need to mobilize the troops of Jiangnan or Jingju. Cao Cao will dare not look toward the southeast." He then replied to Lu Su, assuring him that there was no need to worry, and that if any northern troops invaded, the emperor's uncle would have a strategy to repel them. The messenger departed. Zhuandi asked, "Now that Cao Cao has raised an army of 300,000, joined forces with the troops at Fei, and is advancing in force, what ingenious plan does the gentleman have to repel them?" Kongming replied, "What Cao Cao has always feared is the army of Liang. Now that Cao Cao has killed Ma Teng, his son Ma Chao, who currently commands the forces of Liang, must be seething with hatred for the Cao. My lord should write a letter to form an alliance with Ma Chao, urging him to raise his troops and march into the pass. Then Cao Cao will have no time to invade the south." Zhuandi was overjoyed and immediately wrote the letter, sending a trusted confidant directly to Ziliang to deliver it. It so happened that Ma Chao was in Ziliang province when he had a dream one night. He dreamed that he was lying in the snow, and a pack of tigers came to bite him. Startled and frightened, he awoke, feeling puzzled. He gathered his officers and told them about the dream. One of the officers spoke up immediately, saying, "This dream is an ominous sign." The others looked at the man, who was a trusted captain in front of the tent, surnamed Pang, named Da, with the courtesy name Lingming. Ma Chao asked, "What do you make of this, Lingming?" Pangda replied, "Encountering tigers in the snow is an extremely ominous sign. Could it be that something has happened to the old general in Zukang?" Before he had finished speaking, a man stumbled in, knelt down, and cried out, "My uncle and younger brother are both dead." Ma Chao looked and saw that it was Ma Dai. Cao Chao was startled and asked what had happened. Ma Dai said, "My uncle and the attendant Wang Kui conspired to kill Cao Cao, but unfortunately the plot was exposed, and they were both executed in the market. My two younger brothers were also killed. Only I, disguised as a merchant, managed to escape in the dead of night." Cao Chao heard this and collapsed to the ground in tears. The generals helped him up. Cao Chao gritted his teeth in hatred for Cao Cao. Suddenly, a report came that Liu Bei of Jingju had sent someone with a letter. Cao Cao opened the letter and read it. The letter read, "I deeply lament the misfortune of the Han dynasty, where Cao Cao has seized power, deceived the emperor, and oppressed the people. I once received a secret edict with your late father, swearing to eliminate this villain. Now that your late father has been killed by Cao Cao, this is an unforgivable enmity between us. If you can lead the troops of Liang to attack Cao Cao from the right, I will mobilize the forces of Jingju and Xiangyang to block him from the front. Then the rebel Cao Cao can be captured. His faction can be destroyed. Our humiliation can be avenged, and the Han dynasty can be revived." This letter cannot express everything. I wait your reply." Ma Chao finished reading the letter, immediately wiped away his tears, and sent the messenger back first. He then raised the troops of Liang and was about to set off, when suddenly the governor of Liang, Han Shuai, sent someone to invite Ma Chao to meet him. When Ma Chao arrived at Han Shuai's mansion, Han Shuai showed him Cao Cao's letter. It read, "If you capture Ma Chao and bring him to Zukong, I will grant you the title of Marquis of Liang." Ma Chao knelt on the ground and said, "Please bind my brother and me and send us to Zukong, sparing you the trouble of fighting." Han Shuai helped him up and said, "I am your father's sworn brother. How could I harm you? If you raise an army, I will assist you." Ma Chao bowed in gratitude. Han Shuai then had Cao Cao's envoy beheaded and mustered his 8 divisions to advance together. Who were these 8 divisions? They were Hozhuan, Chengyan, Li Can, Zhongheng, Liang Crossing, Chengyi, Mawan, and Zhongqiu. The 8 generals followed Han Shuai, joining forces with Pangda and Ma Dai under Ma Chao, totaling 200,000 troops, and marched toward Chang'an. The governor of Chang'an, Zhongyao, reported the news to Cao Cao. On one hand, he led his troops to resist the enemy, deploying his forces in the open field. Ma Dai, the vanguard of the Western Liang army, led 15,000 troops, marching in great numbers, covering the mountains and fields. Zhongyao rode out to meet him. Ma Dai wielded a precious sword and engaged Zhongyao in battle. After a single exchange, Zhongyao was soundly defeated and fled. Ma Dai pursued him with his sword. Ma Chao and Han Shuai arrived with their main forces and surrounded Chang'an. Zhongyao retreated to the city walls to defend it. Chang'an was the former capital of the Western Han dynasty, with sturdy city walls and deep, perilous moats, making it difficult to breach quickly. After 10 days of siege, they still could not break through. Pangda suggested, "The soil in Chang'an is hard, and the water is alkaline, making it unbearable to eat. Moreover, there is no firewood. After 10 days of siege, the soldiers and civilians are starving. It would be better to temporarily withdraw the troops and do this and that, and Chang'an will be easily captured," Ma Chao said. "This plan is brilliant." Immediately, he sent out the order flag to all units, instructing them to withdraw. Ma Chao personally brought up the rear. The troops gradually withdrew. The next day, Zhongyao climbed the city walls to look and saw that the troops had all withdrawn. He feared there might be a trick, so he sent scouts to investigate. Sure enough, the troops had gone far away, so he finally felt at ease. He allowed the soldiers and civilians to go out of the city to gather firewood and water, open the city gates wide, and let people come and go freely. On the 5th day, reports came that Ma Chao's troops had returned, and the people rushed back into the city. Zhou Yu once again closed the gates and held his ground. Meanwhile, Zhou Yu's younger brother, Zhong Jin, was stationed at the west gate. Around midnight, a fire broke out within the city gates. As Zhong Jin rushed to extinguish it, a figure emerged from the city walls, brandishing a sword and shouting, "Pangda is here." Zhong Jin was caught off guard and was struck down by Pangda with a single blow, scattering the military officers, cutting through the gates and breaking the locks, allowing Ma Chao and Han Shuai's troops to enter the city. Zhong Yu fled the city through the east gate. Ma Chao and Han Shuai captured the city and rewarded their troops. Zhong Yu retreated to Tungwan and sent an urgent report to Cao Cao. Upon learning that Chang'an had been lost, Cao Cao dared not discuss the southern campaign further. He summoned Cao Hong and Su Wang and instructed them, "Take 10,000 troops first to reinforce Zhou Yu in defending Tongwan. If the pass is lost within 10 days, you will both be executed. After 10 days, it will not be your responsibility. I will lead the main army to follow shortly." The two accepted the orders and set off immediately. Cao Ren advised, "Hong has a hot temper. I fear he may cause trouble." Cao replied, "You will escort the supplies and provide support from behind." Meanwhile, Cao Hong and Su Wang arrived at Tongwan Pass and took over from Zhou Yu defending the pass, refusing to engage in battle. Ma Chao led his troops to the foot of the pass and hurled insults at Cao's 3 generations. Cao Hong flew into a rage and wanted to lead his troops down the pass to fight. Su Wang advised, "This is Ma Chao trying to provoke you into battle. Do not engage him. Wait for the main army to arrive, and there will be a plan." Ma Chao's troops took turns cursing day and night. Cao Hong insisted on fighting, but Su Wang firmly refused. On the 9th day, when they looked out from the pass, they saw that the Xiliang troops had abandoned their horses and were sitting on the grassland in front of the pass. Most of them were exhausted and lying on the ground asleep. Cao Hong ordered his troops to prepare their horses and led 3,000 soldiers down the pass to attack. The Xiliang troops abandoned their horses and weapons and fled. Hong rushed to catch up. At that moment, Su Wang was inspecting the grain carts at the pass. Upon hearing that Cao Hong had gone down the pass to engage in battle, he was greatly alarmed and quickly led his troops to follow, shouting for Cao Hong to turn back. Suddenly, a loud shout erupted from behind, and Ma Dai led his troops to attack. As Cao Hong and Su Wang retreated, a drumbeat sounded, and 2 armies emerged from behind the mountain, Ma Chao on the left and Pangda on the right, engaging in a fierce battle. Cao Hong could not withstand the attack, losing half his troops, and broke through the encirclement, fleeing back to the pass. The Xiliang troops pursued them, and Hong and his men abandoned the pass and fled. Pangda pursued them all the way to Tong Pass, where he encountered Cao Ren's troops and rescued Cao Hong and his men. Ma Chao joined forces with Pangda and returned to the pass. Cao Hong lost Tong Pass and rushed to see Cao. Cao said, "I gave you 10 days, yet you lost Tong Pass in 9 days." Cao Hong replied, "The Xiliang troops insulted us in every way. Seeing their troops grow complacent, we pursued them, only to fall into the enemy's trap." Cao said, "Cao Hong is young and impulsive." Su Wang, "You must be cautious." Su Wang said, "I repeatedly advised him, but he would not listen." On that day, I was inspecting the grain carts at the pass. By the time I realized what had happened, the young general had already left the pass. I feared something might go wrong and rushed to catch up, but it was already too late. We had fallen into the enemy's trap. Cao flew into a rage and ordered Cao Hong's execution. The officials pleaded for mercy. Cao Hong confessed his guilt and withdrew. Cao advanced his troops directly to Tong Pass. Cao Ren said, "We should first establish our camp and then attack the pass." Cao ordered the felling of trees and the erection of palisades, dividing his forces into 3 camps. Cao Ren in the left camp, Hu Yuan in the right camp, and Cao himself in the central camp. The next day, Cao led the officers and soldiers of the 3 camps to charge toward the pass, where they encountered the forces of Liang. Both sides deployed their formations. Cao rode out under the banner, observing the troops of Liang, each one brave and heroic. He also saw Ma Chao, who had a face as white as powder lips as red as vermilion, a slender waist, broad shoulders, a powerful voice, and great strength. He wore white robes and silver armor, held a long spear, and stood at the front of the formation. To his left was Pangda, and to his right was Ma Dai. Cao Cao secretly marveled at him and rode forward to say to Ma Chao, "You are the descendant of a famous general of the Han dynasty. Why have you turned against us?" Ma Chao clenched his teeth and cursed, "You traitor! You have betrayed your lord and defied your superiors, deserving no mercy. You have killed my father and brother, an unforgivable enmity. I shall capture you alive and devour your flesh." With that, he charged forward with his spear. Cao Cao's rear guard, Yu Jin, stepped forward to meet him. The two horses clashed, fighting for 8 or 9 rounds, before Yu Jin retreated in defeat. Zhong He stepped forward to meet him, but after 20 rounds, he too retreated in defeat. Li Tong stepped forward, and Ma Chao, displaying his might, engaged him in battle. Within a few rounds, he thrust his spear into Li Tong, knocking him from his horse. Ma Chao swung his spear backward, and the Shi Yong troops charged forward in unison. Cao Cao's forces were routed. The Shi Liang troops advanced with overwhelming force, and none of Cao Cao's generals could withstand them. Ma Chao, Pangda, and Ma Dai led over 100 cavalrymen straight into the center of the army to capture Cao Cao. Cao Cao was in the midst of the chaos when he heard the Shi Liang troops shout, "The one in the red robe is Cao Cao." Cao Cao quickly removed his red robe. He then heard them shout, "The one with the long beard is Cao Cao." Cao Cao panicked and drew his sword to cut off his beard. Someone in the army told Ma Chao about Cao Cao cutting off his beard. So Ma Chao ordered his men to capture him, shouting, "The man with the short beard is Cao Cao." Upon hearing this, Cao Cao immediately grabbed the corner of his flag and wrapped it around his neck to escape. A later poet wrote, "Defeated at Tongguan, Cao Cao fled in panic, shedding his brocaded robe. Cutting off his beard must have filled him with dread, while Ma Cao's fame soared to the heavens." As Cao Cao was fleeing, a rider came up behind him. Turning to look, he saw it was Ma Chao. Cao Cao was terrified. The officers and soldiers on either side, seeing Ma Chao chasing after him, fled for their lives, leaving Cao Cao behind. Ma Chao shouted loudly, "Cao Cao, don't run." Cao Cao was so startled that he dropped his horsewhip. As Ma Chao caught up, he thrust his spear at Cao Cao from behind. Cao Cao circled around a tree, and Ma Cao's spear struck the tree. By the time he pulled it out, Cao Cao had already fled far away. Ma Chao spurred his horse forward, but a general emerged from the hillside, shouting, "Do not harm my lord. Cao Hong is here." He swung his sword and charged, blocking Ma Cao's path. Cao Cao managed to escape. Cao Hong and Ma Chao fought for over 40 exchanges, but Cao Hong's sword techniques grew disorganized, and his strength waned. Shah Huyuan arrived with several dozen riders. Ma Chao, fearing he might be outnumbered, turned his horse and retreated. Shah Huyuan did not pursue. Cao Cao returned to camp, where Cao Ren had firmly held the fortifications, so no more troops were lost. Cao Cao entered his tent and sighed. "If I had killed Cao Hong, I would have died today at the hands of Ma Chao." He then summoned Cao Hong and rewarded him generously. "Rally the defeated troops, hold the fortifications, dig deep trenches and build high walls, and do not engage in battle. Ma Chao leads his troops to the fortifications every day to taunt and challenge them to battle. Cao Cao orders his soldiers to hold their ground, and anyone who moves without permission will be executed. The generals say the troops of Liang all use long spears, so we should use bows and crossbows to counter them. Cao Cao says, whether we fight or not is up to me, not the enemy. Though the bandits have long spears, how can they pierce through? You all just hold your ground and watch. The bandits will retreat on their own. The generals privately discussed among themselves. The Chancellor has always led the charge in battle. Now that he has been defeated by Ma Chao, why is he so weak? After a few days, spies reported Ma Chao has added another 20,000 fresh troops to aid in battle, all from the Kong tribes. Cao Cao heard this and was overjoyed. The generals asked, Ma Chao has added troops, yet the Chancellor is delighted. Why is that? Cao Cao replied, wait until I have one, and then I will tell you all. 3 days later, another report came that more troops had been added at the pass. Cao Cao was overjoyed once more and held a banquet in his tent to celebrate. The generals all smiled secretly. Cao Cao said, you all laugh at me for having no strategy to defeat Ma Chao. Do you have any better plans? Zhou Wang suggested, now that the Chancellor has gathered a large army here, the enemy is also fully deployed at the pass. If we attack the western river region, they will be unprepared. If we send a force to secretly cross the Pan ferry, cut off the enemy's retreat route, and then the Chancellor directly attacks from the north, the enemy will be unable to coordinate their forces and will be in grave danger, Cao Cao said. Your words are exactly what I had in mind. He then ordered Zhou Wang to lead 4,000 elite troops, along with Zhou Lang, to secretly attack the western bank of the river, hiding in the valleys. Wait for me to cross the river and attack them simultaneously. Zhou Wang and Zhou Lang accepted the order and led the 4,000 troops away secretly. Cao Cao issued an order, first instructing Cao Hong to prepare boats and rafts at the Pan ferry. He left Cao Ren to guard the camp and led his troops across the Wei River. Soon, spies reported this to Ma Chao. Chao said, now, if Cao does not attack Tungwan, but sends people to prepare boats and rafts to cross the north of the river, it will surely hold me back. I shall lead an army along the river to hold back the north bank. Cao Bing couldn't cross the river. Within 20 days, the food supply on the east side of the river ran out and Cao Bing was bound to fall into chaos. But he followed the south side of the river and attacked him. Cao could be captured. Han Shui said, there's no need to do so. Have you not heard the military strategy that says, when an army is halfway across the river, it can be attacked? But when Cao Bing has crossed halfway, if you attack him on the south bank, Cao Bing will all die in the river. Chao said, Uncle's words are very kind. Even if someone inquired about when Cao Cao would cross the river, it is said that Cao Cao had completed his troop formation and divided his troops into 3 groups to stop and cross the Wei River. By the time his troops reached the river mouth, the sun was just beginning to rise. Cao Xianfa sent his elite troops across the northern shore to establish a camp. Cao Zi led 100 of his personal guards to sit on the south bank with their swords in hand, watching the troops cross the river. Suddenly, someone reported, the white-robed general has arrived behind. Everyone recognized it as Ma Chao. As soon as they got off the ship, the soldiers by the riverbank scrambled to board the boat, their voices never ceasing. Cao still sat still and pressed his sword finger to stop the commotion, only to hear the cries of people and the neighing of horses could be heard as they swarmed over. A general on the boat leapt onto the shore and shouted, The bandits have arrived. Please disembark, Prime Minister. Looking closely, it is Zhou Yu. Cao still said in his mouth. What harm does it matter if the thief arrives? Looking back, Ma Chao was no more than 100 steps away. When Zhou Yu pulled the cowl off the boat was already more than a jong from the shore. Chu carried the cowl and jumped onto the boat. All the accompanying soldiers jumped into the water, held onto the side of the boat, and vied to board and escape for their lives. Chao said, "Now, if Cao does not attack Tungwan, but sends people to prepare boats and rafts to cross the north of the river, it will surely hold me back. I shall lead an army along the river to hold back the north bank." Cao Bing couldn't cross the river. Within 20 days, the food supply on the east side of the river ran out and Cao Bing was bound to fall into chaos. But he followed the south side of the river and attacked him. Cao could be captured. Han Shui said, "There's no need to do so. Have you not heard the military strategy that says, when an army is halfway across the river, it can be attacked? But when Cao Bing has crossed halfway, if you attack him on the south bank, Cao Bing will all die in the river." Chao said, "Uncle's words are very kind. Even if someone inquired about when Cao would cross the river, it is said that Cao had completed his troop formation and divided his troops into 3 groups to stop and cross the Wei River. By the time his troops reached the river mouth, the sun was just beginning to rise. Cao Xianfa sent his elite troops across the northern shore to establish a camp. Cao Zi led 100 of his personal guards to sit on the south bank with their swords in hand, watching the troops cross the river. Suddenly, someone reported, "The white-robed general has arrived behind." Everyone recognized it as Ma Chao. As soon as they got off the ship, the soldiers by the riverbank scrambled to board the boat, their voices never ceasing. Cao still sat still and pressed his sword finger to stop the commotion. Only to hear the cries of people and the neighing of horses could be heard as they swarmed over. A general on the boat leapt onto the shore and shouted, "The bandits have arrived. Please disembark, Prime Minister." Looking closely, it is Zhou Yu. Cao still said in his mouth, "What harm does it matter if the thief arrives?" Looking back, Ma Chao was no more than 100 steps away. When Zhou Yu pulled the cowl off the boat was already more than a jong from the shore. Chu carried the cowl and jumped onto the boat. All the accompanying soldiers jumped into the water, held onto the side of the boat, and vied to board and escape for their lives. Cao Zi said, "If it weren't for the good plan of the public, I would have been captured by the bandits." He was then appointed as the commander of the Imperial Guard. Fei said, "Although the bandits have temporarily left, they will surely return tomorrow. A good strategy must be adopted to reject it." Cao said, "I'm ready." So he ordered the generals to each go their separate ways and build a passageway along the river, temporarily serving as at the base of their camp. If the bandits came, they would set up their troops outside the passageway. They set up banners within themselves as suspicious troops. He dug a moat along the river, covered it with a shed of loose soil, and lured them with troops in the river. When the bandits come in a hurry, they will surely fall. Once they fall, we can attack them. It was said that when Ma Chao met Han Shui again, he said, "We almost captured Cao." One general bravely carried the drill and disembarked from the ship. No one knows who he was. Then he said, "I have heard that Cao has selected extremely strong and capable men to serve as guards in front of the tent, named the Tiger Guard Army, led by the valiant generals Dian Wei and Zhou Yu. Dian Wei is dead. Now, the one who will save Cao must be Zhou Yu. This person is extremely brave and strong, and everyone calls him Tiger Manique. If so, never underestimate the enemy," Chao said. "I have heard of his name for a long time." Then he said, "Today I cross the river and will attack my rear. It can be attacked quickly. Do not allow him to establish a camp. If a camp is set up, it will be wiped out in times of emergency." Zhou said, "In my humble opinion, it still only refuses the northern shore. It is the best strategy to prevent him from crossing the river." Then he said, "Dear nephew, guard the fort. I will lead the troops to fight along the river. What should I do?" Zhou said, "Order Pangda to be the vanguard and go with your uncle." So Han Sui and Pangda led 50,000 troops straight to Weinan. The commander ordered all the generals to guide him on both sides of the corridor. Pangda first led over 1,000 iron cavalry and came in a conflict. Where the shout rose, both the horse and the horse fell into the pit. Pound jumped up. Leap out of the pit, stand on the flat ground, kill several men at once, and walk through the encirclement. Han Sui was trapped in. Pangda saved him on foot. Just then, he met Cao Yong, a general under Cao Ren, who was beheaded by Pangda with a single sword. Pangda seized his horse, cut through a bloody path, rescued Han Sui, and fled southeast. Cao Cao's troops came from behind. Ma Chao led his troops to support them, defeated them, and rescued most of their horses. We fought until dusk before we returned. Counting the troops, the generals Cheng Yin and Zhong Heng were defeated, and more than 200 people died in the pit. Chao and Han Sui discussed, "If we delay for too long, Cao will set up a camp in the north of the river, and it will be difficult to retreat the enemy. It would be better to take a light ride tonight to rob the campsite." Then he said, "We must split the troops and rescue each other from the front and back." So Chaozi served as the front and Pangda and Ma Dai as the rear supporters. That night, it was done. It is said that Cao Cao withdrew his troops and stationed them in the northern part of the Wei River. He called out to his generals, saying, "The bandits have taken advantage of me for not setting up a fort. They will surely come to rob the camp. One can disperse ambush troops in all directions to weaken the central army. When the Hon cannon goes off, all the ambush troops rise up and can be captured with a single drum. All the generals have followed the order, and the ambush has been completed." That night, Ma Chao first ordered Cheng Yi to lead 30 riders to the front post to scout. Seeing that there were no troops, Cheng Yi directly entered the central army. When Cao Jun saw the troops from Ziliang arrive, he fired the bugle gun. Ambush troops from all directions emerged, but only 30 cavalrymen were surrounded. Cheng Yi was killed by Sha Hu Yuan. Ma Chao, however, had been charging forward in a swarm with Pangda and Ma Dai from behind, splitting into 3 groups. Exactly. Even if there are ambush troops ready to wait for the enemy, how can there be valiant generals competing to be the first? The outcome remains unknown. Let's take a look at the following breakdown.